Hello. Today I am joined by my colleague, Johnna, Georgia. And we are going to talk about something called dwelling in the Word. But first, Johnna, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Deaconess Johnna, Georgia. I'm a deaconess with the Lutheran Diaconal Association, and I am the program director for Awaken Dane with the Wisconsin Council of Churches.
And can you give me like a one sentence, what is Awaken Dane? Or
One sentence.
you can have more than one.
Awaken Dane is a cohort experience for churches here in Dane County. We do a lot of exercises in dwelling in the Word, which is why we're talking about it today, to help build a spiritual muscle so that they can go out into their neighborhoods and remember that the church is more than just the four walls of their church building, and be with their neighbors, and work on that, the ministry of being with as opposed to the ministry of doing for others, and really just trying to expand our vision of what is the church in the neighborhood.
So we are talking about dwelling on the Word. What is dwelling in the Word? Dwelling in the Word,
Dwelling in the Word. If
not on
you're
the
at all
Word.
familiar with lectio divina, it's very similar to that spiritual practice. I didn't invent this. Lots of folks are doing dwelling in the Word across a lot of different denominations. But essentially, we read a text of scripture, and as we're reading the text, as someone is reading the text, you are listening for what grabbed your attention. Where if you've ever listened to someone talk or someone read something and your mind sort of gets snagged on a word or a phrase, that's sort of what we're looking for. Where did your um imagination stop? What captured your attention? And then you sit with that and pray on, well, why that? Why today? Where What was so important about that word or phrase that it stuck in my mind? In the practice, we read the text twice, and you sit with those questions, and you're ultimately trying to discern, what is the Spirit nudging you or telling you or conveying to you through the text, acknowledging that Scripture is the Bible is a living text, and so even if you hear something out of the text that doesn't, it's not a Bible study. We're not trying to figure out like why that number or something like that. You're trying, if a number stuck out to you, it's, what does that number mean to me, and how is that sitting with me? What is the Spirit trying to tell me? So it can be really transformative, transformational. But the practice doesn't stop there. We're doing this in a group setting, and so you have a partner. So if you were my partner, after we sat with those questions, I would tell you, here's what I heard. This is where my attention was drawn and why I think it was drawn there. And your job is to sit and listen to me share without interruptions. You're really trying to open yourself to deeply spiritually listen to what I'm trying to say. Um, and then vice versa, I will deeply listen to you. And then as we share, either at a table or in the full group, this is my partner Breanna, and this is what I heard her say as like a bottom line. Like I pulled out the essence of what you were trying to say, and you do the same. And I say, did I get that right? And you do the same for me. Um, and so again, through this practice, we're really just trying to build this muscle of deep spiritual listening, that if you've at all ever had a conversation with someone before, you might have had this experience where you're like, um, well, I'll give you an example. Breanna, can you tell me about what you had so far to eat today?
I had a bagel and cream cheese and
Oh
some.
my gosh, this one time I had a bagel and it was just like the coolest bagel that I ever had. You wouldn't have believed it, right? Like that doesn't feel good. Like sometimes that's how we talk, and that's normal, but you just got cut off and in mid thought because I wanted to impose what I had to say on you, right? And so we're trying to break ourselves of these habits, which sometimes that's how conversation goes, and that serves you in certain circumstances. But when we're trying to do the work that we're trying to do, that doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us to cut each other off and to not sit and hold the person fully in what they're trying to say or convey. And that includes the spirit. We're trying to hold that space. We're not trying to interrupt the spirit to get the full thought across.
Interrupted. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
As you were talking, part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation is that is what excites me so much about dwelling in the word, is that deep listening and how countercultural that is in our world, as you demonstrated with my bagel. But like, that is countercultural, and that is a different posture to approach the world with, and a different muscle that, I forget if you said it in this already in this interview, but like exercising that muscle of deep listening.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more about like why you want to exercise this muscle and why you do this.
That's exactly, I use that language a lot, that this is a muscle we need to work out, of deep spiritual listening, because we do it with the scripture, and then we do it with our partner. And our hope, and through Awaken Dane, then you get a little assignment that sends you out into your neighborhood so that you can practice that deep spiritual listening in your neighborhood, and in and among your neighbors, because we want you to listen for the spirit in and among your neighbor. Christians are we have a bad habit of telling people what they need and then serving without doing the work of really listening spiritually for what's already happening in our neighborhoods. The overall premise of Awaken Dane is that the Spirit of God is already at work in your neighborhood. And so we want to do these spiritual listening exercises, deep listening to the scripture and then to our neighbors, so that we can determine where the Spirit is moving and working and how the Spirit is moving, working, so that we can engage in that work that's already happening, instead of just saying, you know what you need, let me figure that out for you, right? We really try and take the posture of being with first. So we are real advocates for ministry of presence. What changes in your ministry when you go from being the person in the soup kitchen serving the soup to sitting and enjoying a meal with someone who needed the services of a soup kitchen. We're not saying it's not important to serve the soup. That is important work too. But can we also make space for being with each other? Because through that meal and that time together, you're going to be able to build relationship and create a space where you can hear and see the Spirit at work. And hopefully, if you're open to it and listening, that deep listening muscle is being worked, you can engage with the work that the Spirit's already doing in and among your neighbors and the people that you're trying to serve. So we're really just trying to build upon things that are already happening.
Well, and I think what excites me so much is we so often in the church get attracted by these really shiny things. We want the shiny thing, the quick answer, the program that's going to grow our church massive sizes. It's going to fill our sanctuary full of children. It's going to, like, there's this like that we want to move fast, we want to move big. And like sometimes that's needed, as you said.
Yep.
And there's also this, what I love about what Awaken Dane does and Dwelling in the Word does is it recognizes that it's not about us. It's about that God is already moving. And sometimes like tapping into that movement in this very like slow, deliberate way. And I have dwelled in the Word with Awaken Dane, and there have been times I'm like, oh my gosh.
And deliberate, yes.
Like, can we, I'm one of those people who like to do things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different posture to approach in the world, and it is deeply radical. And I think it's one of those that it might not lead to these giant things, but it might lead in a direction that like you never expected, if you're actually tapped into God's spirit. Can you share a little bit about maybe a story or some way you've seen this lived out in the work at Awaken, Dane?
Yeah. Well, first I just want to say that one of the criticisms of folks who are thinking about whether they want to join Awaken Dane is, what are the outcomes? Mm-hmm. And we can't necessarily provide you with outcomes because the spirit is doing something different in your neighborhood than it is in my neighborhood, right? And if we take this idea that the church is not a building, the church is your people, and we sort of statistically know that the vast majority of people in your church do not live in the church neighborhood, right? And so you have the church, and then you have all your congregation members scattered around, right? What we're trying to say is going to happen is that we're empowering your people to better fulfill their Christian duty of loving and serving their neighbor. And therefore, the presence of your church is in these neighborhoods. The reach of your church is much wider. Our program is not about getting butts in seats. It's not about evangelism, although that might happen if that's what the spirit's up to. But that's not our first step forward. That's not the point. Right now, some of our folks are in the experiment phase where they've been doing this deep listening for quite a while, and trying to tap into like, all right, I feel like the spirit might be nudging me to something. And we do have a little money to play with so that they can try, have the power to try something. Someone just shared with me that they were feeling really compelled to host a gathering with some neighbors that otherwise don't really have the opportunity. I mean, it's winter in Wisconsin. Like, it's hard to even see each other right now. And so they used a little bit of the money for some refreshments and some puzzles and hosted a gathering where folks were able to just come and be together. And that alone it might not seem significant, but you never know what the ramifications from that down the line are going to be. You might hear things like, that was a moment where I felt very safe. I felt very cared for. The warmth that I received, right? Like, these are things that people then will take with them and
just build stronger communities.
Yes.
When you know your neighbors, like and in a world with so much loneliness, like that.
I was just gonna say, it touches on the epidemic of loneliness, which is a hot button issue right now, right?
Like, what if every church was doing that? Like, every person in every church did that. It would change our world.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And so we're here. I mean, folks are like, I'm going to buy some dog treats just so that I have an excuse because I see my neighbors walking the dogs and sometimes it's just kind of awkward, but like, if you have a little dog treat, it sort of breaks the ice and, stuff like that. Someone has a daughter who works in a kind of a social worky situation who had some folks that she bought some Christmas gifts for them with their money, and that actually, while it served those folks, what it did was actually create space and relationship between her and her daughter that wasn't there before. Because it was like, I want to support you. And together they worked through like what would be really meaningful, and it just created an excuse to have these interactions and deepen their relationship. So like, it looks different in all these different contexts. And we're just now sort of building little pieces on each other. So it's an exciting time. And it's very repetitive because once you do an experiment, then you share it with your group and we all deeply listen to each other share. And then we're like, here's what captured my attention about that. And then
And then you continue
Here's
up.
how the spirit might be nudging me now.
Action reflection.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. So if people wanted to learn more, what should they do?
I think it would be great if you checked out our website, which is very simply awakendane.org. We are going to have one more cohort of churches start in the fall, and we are recruiting for them now. And we have spots for 10 congregations. It is the program is for the pastor or a ministry leader and 4 to 8 congregational team members to do together.
In Dane
So
County right
in
now.
Dane, yes, you have to be in Dane County. Sorry. And that runs through that would be the fall of 2024 through the end of 2025 would be the commitment. So,
well, thank you so much, Johnna.
Sure.